Introducing Armis Centrix. Born in the cloud and fueled by AI, only Armis Centrix delivers true cyber exposure management through 7 modular products. Let's have a look at Armis Centrix for medical device security. Armis Centrix for medical device security provides a patient-centric approach to cybersecurity, letting you see, protect, and manage every asset in your healthcare organization, from patient intake to the operating room to climate control. Armis Centrix protects the technology that powers safe and efficient healthcare facilities and patient care. Armis Centrix for medical device security helps answer the most critical questions in a healthcare environment. What do I have? Where is it located? Is it turned on and being used to its full capacity? What risk does it pose? Is my environment protected against threats, particularly ransomware? Our use cases focus on all personas, from security analysts to executives, from clinical engineers to their leadership. And yes, even the CFOs are getting value from the Armis Centrix platform. So let's dig into the various use cases. Now let's start off with one of the most foundational elements, visibility. Armis Centrix for medical device security provides a complete and holistic view of a healthcare network. It dynamically builds a software and hardware inventory of one of the most diverse ecosystems across any industry. It discovers everything from enterprise assets such as laptops, desktops, servers, medical devices including imaging modalities such as CT scanners, MRIs, infusion pumps, and patient monitors, as well as building management systems that enable care, including HVAC units in surgical wards and emergency diesel generators, as well as IoT devices such as IP cameras and tablets that power patient registration kiosks. Armis Centrix for medical device security provides complete visibility into all assets throughout the entire patient journey. Now let's dive into an X-ray to show you the level of detail Armis Centrix can provide about medical devices. Now, Armis Centrix provides visibility into medical devices at a number of different layers, starting off with the make and model of the medical device, in this case, an OrthoScan Mini C-arm, as well as the operating system stack, in this case, a more mainstream Windows XP flavor, but it also provides visibility into more streamlined and more dedicated medical device operating systems, including things such as ANIA OSC, embedded firmwares, as well as medical software versions running on those devices. It also provides information into network properties of the device, users that may have logged in, as well as information from Armis's device knowledge base, including clinical impact assessment of those devices. What is the financial cost? What is the impact to patient care if this device fails? As well as what is the patient dependence of this device? Can the patients go a couple of minutes or hours without that device, or is it much more central to ongoing patient care, such as defibrillators and ventilators that patients cannot go seconds without? In addition to this, Armis provides forensics level detail, as I like to call it, on everything the medical device is doing on the network. This visibility is core to detecting threats, along with anomalous behaviors that help identify when medical devices aren't operating as they should. In this case, we're monitoring for network connections. We're able to do application discovery, which is extremely useful when we're thinking about third-party risk and detecting whether vendors are leveraging remote access software such as TeamViewer or LogMe In and have unrestricted access into an environment. And Armis also has visibility in terms of medical imaging scans and utilization details, including when those assets are being used, what their utilization rate is this device even being used to its full capacity? Is it overutilized and healthcare organizations might need to procure additional ones? But more often than not, it's actually the inverse. A lot of times healthcare organizations are duplicating purchases because they're unsure of where medical devices might be. Perhaps they're lost, or perhaps they're underutilized. Perhaps nurses are simply hoarding them, so they're running into devices with higher utilization and what is perceived to be low levels of inventory, and so they'll go and purchase a lot more. With Armis Centrix for medical device security, we can actually help healthcare organizations reduce cost, not only by identifying assets that are underutilized, but also locating where they are in the environment so that they can be retrieved, and introduced back into circulation and operational usage across their medical device fleet. And Armis does this not only at a single device view, but also looking at the fleet as a whole. In this case, I'm looking at my MRIs, which ones may or may not be used, what the heaviest periods of utilization are, as well as what are my most over and underutilized devices. And by the way, this information isn't just for clinical engineers. This information can also be used to identify optimal windows for things like change management. In the case of perhaps a PACS or diagnostic imaging platform migration, understanding what's the lowest disruption of patient care by identifying which windows these devices might not be used or least being used to redirect them to the new PACS software that might be installed. Likewise, we can do the same analysis for things such as infusion pumps, lab equipment, patient monitors, and so on. Now, other specialized visibility Armis Centrix for medical device security provides, in addition to the technical risks such as vulnerabilities and CVE information, is visibility into elements that may result in patient privacy breaches. In this case, we actually can detect when medical devices are transmitting PHI unencrypted across the network. Another aspect of risk that Armis looks at is overlaying FDA recall information on top of the analysis we've already done. So what does that look like? Because Armis understands what the device is, what the device is running, it also correlates recall information directly with the asset. So in this case, there's a class 1 recall. It looks at when that FDA recall was published, information about what the description is, what the required actions are of the organization, and links directly to that FDA recall. So in this way, we're taking into account technical vulnerabilities, including CVEs, behavioral risk, patient privacy risk, configuration risk, and we're overlaying that with clinical impact and patient safety risk to arrive to a holistic risk score, which other platforms otherwise simply cannot get to. And now that we've seen the rich level of detail Armis provides about the medical devices, not only what they are, but also monitoring their behaviors, as well as doing an overarching risk assessment, let's have a quick look at how Armis Centrix can also help protect healthcare environments against ransomware. As I mentioned earlier, the Activities tab here is a complete forensics level view of everything that asset is doing on the environment. Now, in this case, what we had was a diagnostic imaging tech that had actually used this device to conduct its normal imaging scan operations. But then we saw a couple of different callouts to the internet. And what ended up happening is the individual went to their personal Gmail, and we can see from there a number of different malicious activities that started occurring due to clicking on a phishing link, and then eventually turning into a ransomware attack that not only infected this CT scanner, but we can see the CT scanner trying to infect the other CT scanners that are also in the environment. And in fact, we can see which ones were attempted, as well as which one was successfully attacked and injected a secondary CT scanner. Now, the power of Armis is the fact that we can also integrate with a number of different security platforms. So within a click of a button or in a very automated fashion, we can actually enforce a security policy on this device. In this case, I'm simply going to enforce a Cisco ICE malware quarantine, so we can cut off all communications to this device immediately and contain that ransomware before it spreads further. Now, what amplifies this is the Armis Centrix AI Assistant. This assistant breaks barriers for adoptions and allows everyone from security to clinical engineering teams, from analysts to executives, to be able to harness the power and come in and ask any question or generate any report simply based on natural language questions. Some of the most common ones and some of the most popular ones I'll very quickly highlight is number one, doing a maturity assessment, in this case, the most common one being the NIST cybersecurity framework. Being able to get per domain scoring, as well as recommendations for maturity in each one. In this case, I've asked it to give me 3 recommendations per domain, as well as what the impact of that recommendation would be to my score. Healthcare organizations can spend thousands, of dollars on this, hiring consultants, and oftentimes very difficult to understand a path to improvement. Well, Armis Centrix Assistant not only looks at what technical and process-oriented improvements can be, but also looks at creating actual implementation roadmaps, understanding what the impact to resources are, both from a cost perspective and FTE perspective, and again, lay out exactly what to do in 30, 60, 90 days, or perhaps they want a more drawn-out plan for 90 days, 180 days, and the entire year, and looking at it overall from a programmatic perspective. This is from an executive's point of view. Now, the other part might be a medical device has been announced as end of life. Well, in this case, we'd be interested in understanding what does that medical device end of life replacement plan look like? In this case, I'd want to understand not only the impact to my risk, what are financial implications, operational requirements, as well as what sites or what's the clinical impact that I would need to take into account in order to replace these devices, and again, minimize any disruption to patient care. So in this case, it's not only about how much will it cost me or about which resources I need, but it's also about understanding what are my tier 1 medical devices, what are my tier 2 medical devices, but also being able to outline whether I need to engage vendors, prioritizing which devices might have FDA recalls. So I'm looking at this from a patient safety perspective as well. Being able to ensure compliance to auditing requirements. And of course, being able to test the functionality of medical devices as they come up. So a recommendation checklist as we're going through and implementing this. Now, I also mentioned earlier, network segmentation reporting and network segmentation implementation are some of the most complex that a healthcare organization can undergo. Well, what if I were to say within minutes, we can actually generate a customized plan to your environment, exactly how your network is architected, and using your network configuration to build out a technical, detailed plan of everything related to segmenting, in this case, your infusion pumps. Everything from understanding what zones to create, as well as what zones and what should be communicating with the various different other zones, along with the zone membership, which devices or which servers or which management devices should be placed in each, as well as being able to generate a complete end-to-end architecture map that is one of the most difficult for healthcare organizations to understand and create. And not only that, but being able to help streamline the implementation of this. Because again, one of the most complex things for a healthcare environment is not only about the visibility, but it's about what do I do and how do I do it with the limited resources I have to help ensure we're making their lives as easy and as automated as possible. By looking and leveraging Armis Centrix's device knowledge base, we're able to help create policies that network engineers can validate and simply copy-paste and automatically push to their infrastructure. Not only that, we look at things from a change management perspective. Keep in mind, we leverage utilization, and we understand when those devices are being used. So we can actually propose times when medical devices are least being used. Again, that same theme of minimizing disruption to patient care. And we also provide validation checklists. This is going above and beyond what any other platform is able to do. Not only from a technical implementation, but from an operational testing perspective. Hey, make sure you have the vendor support on standby. Make sure you're able to actually reach the infusion pump and you're able to push new drug library versions to that infusion pump once you've actually tested it. And oh, by the way, here's the different phases and the different sites that you should prioritize first. Maybe one that's lesser used as more of a prep and staging environment versus a much bigger and broader complete healthcare campus. And this is where I was mentioning the change windows. So in this case, Zurich clinics, Saturdays from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. And here's the number of pumps to segment. these are the ones to start with, and you can see the different locations have different change windows. Now, I've also shown you earlier a ransomware attack. Well, if I'm an executive, I need a quick high-level overview into that ransomware incident. Well, in a matter of minutes, we can also create a complete end-to-end incident response report, looking at everything from the alerts generated, mapping out what that incident looks like, as well as details in terms of the timeline, who patient 0 was, along with detailed remediation plans that security teams need to undertake that can otherwise be complex and confusing if they don't have defined incident response playbooks. And with that, as we have seen, Armis Centrix for medical device security covers a broad spectrum of use cases, from the most foundational asset visibility to cyber and clinical risk prioritization. Our Centrix AI assistant takes the most challenging projects and helps teams break it down so they're focused on strategic execution and true contextualized risk reduction. And by marrying together the rich data between Armis Centrix and ServiceNow, we're helping ensure completely tailored and contextualized recommendations, allowing leadership from across the entire healthcare operating environment to tap into the value from the platform and help ensure the right patients get access to the right care at the right time.